And, the people on my stream who are like, well, if you had just ignored it, then this would not have become such a big thing. I really, that presses my buttons because it just like it's such a disingenuous way of looking at it. I'm not trying to seek attention with this, but the people who are buying into this narrative, they exist at many levels, including at the very top level, and they include a large number of chess fans. Like this is doing very serious damage and actual damage. It's not just like bots or Russian spies who are believing Kramnik. He is like he has a lot of authority. He's a fucking world champion. Okay, and like people say that, but they don't understand what that means and how much authority that gives you. There's like 14 of those guys, and like ever. Okay. So in terms of the like evidence, let's start with the like yesterday I asked Kramnik, can you lay out specifically what are the points that you want me to disprove? And he didn't answer because that is the nature of the shifting goalpost. But if I could pin down like what is the body of evidence, first of all, the eye movements, okay? So the eye movements exist in two different forms. And now I think that it's taken on three different like specific varieties. The first is based on a game that I played with Kramnik entitled Tuesday that I put out on my YouTube channel, which is one of the many things that makes this kind of a theater of the absurd. The fact that like, okay, so he thinks I cheated on my Twitch stream and then I immortalized that by then asking my editor to put it on my YouTube channel. It's not an argument in my defense. It's just like funny that he never like paused to think about how shameless I would have to be. So Fabi, Christian, you know what I'm talking about, like that game with Kramnik, right? Queen H4 check.
I think I've seen it. Yes. The Queen H4 was the sexy move. Yeah.
It was the sexy move, and after that, in the same video, he looks at a game with Wesley. But one of the biggest sources of his confusion is that I have two different streaming spaces. Okay, so where I'm sitting right now is my main streaming space.
I was just about to ask you about that because I think this is a new point that he just brought in today's episode, where he talks about you having two very distinct spaces. This one was the one that he used for Levitov chess, and the ones that he's presented in previous episodes.
Yeah, it's my home office.
It's a different one. Yes.
But it's like my main one, right? So this is my home office. I was trying to joke on the Levitov show. I mean, the guy is so humorless. I was like, let me show all 6 of my monitors or something like that. And Levitov laughed and like Kramnik just like stony faced. Well, I don't know what his face was because he was too much of a chicken to turn his camera on.
Actually, I was going to like mention that like during this whole Levitov interview, I think that you went through like your entire setup, right? You showed everything in your room and so on and so forth. And this, I assume, was not convincing for Kramnik.
No, partially because he's asking me to prove the absence of something, which is impossible by definition. To prove the absence of something is impossible by definition. So that's the third monitor. But he thinks that I have these two spaces for a nefarious reason. I simply have another streaming space. That's the one with like the white wall, right? Where I sometimes like plug in the backlight that's plugged in right now, right here. And I stream from my laptop. I also use that laptop when I travel, right? When I go back home, for example. And the laptop is plugged into a monitor. And I've shown that setup and that entire room I've shown as well. And the only reason that I stream from that room sometimes is if my like cleaning lady is here. Or like, if I just want a slight different change of, sometimes I like playing from my laptop because it's a high refresh rate and it's a smaller room so I can focus better. Like everything is ascribed to some nefarious reason. And I'm like, am I a genius or am I an idiot? Like which one is it? Like, am I James Bond or am I like,
I just want to understand, maybe Kramnik got into this, or maybe he didn't. I assume he didn't, but if let's just assume that a player is a cheater, why would it make any difference how many playing spaces they have? Like if they have their cheating setup, why do they need a different cheating setup? Or why do they need one fair setup, one cheating setup? Like what's the logic there if he got into that at all?
Well, he's contradicting himself because first of all, he doesn't realize that my monitor that's I use with my laptop is much smaller. Like my two monitors on my main office is like 34 inches and 31.5 inches, like really, really big. And it's really comfortable to play and to work on them. And I don't just use it to cheat, right? I use it, just kidding. I don't just use it to play Title Tuesday. See, I shouldn't joke about that, but I can't help it because it's just too fucking funny.
This will be taken out of context.
The whole situation is too ripe for humor and fucking with people, so I do it. and I'm going to continue to.
Okay, so Danya is playing 1100s, and this is the proof. This is the smoking gun that he needs the engine to cheat against the guys who blunder all their pieces, with all due respect to 1100s. And also because I understand, like, the idea was, okay, he's ready to.
That's the bigger thing. Can I interrupt you for just a second?
That was the thing. Sure.
Like, Kramnik, like, made it clear that, okay, he's not saying I use the engine at, like, because I didn't use the engine on the live position. I would never do that during the speedrun either, because that's crazy. Like, so just to be clear, I used it at a particular moment on move 8. And I checked that moment and turned off the engine. And then, just to like complete that story really quickly, when I put the video out and some comments started coming in, oh, Naroditsky is a cheater. Oh my God, what are you doing? I decided to put an apology note at the top of the video, and I owed every viewer and my opponent an apology because what I did was wrong, end of story. I took responsibility for it. It is a violation. The optics of it are really bad, and it was a stupid, dumbass thing to do. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, except there kind of are. And Fabi, the craziest thing to me and the most frustrating thing was what you're talking about, which is the people using it to suggest a larger pattern. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I could see that's even a point. Like, okay, there's a larger pattern, but you can't see, but I have my laptop here right next to me. I can turn it on anytime I want and cheat during Title Tuesday. Absolutely. Of course, I would never do that. Now, if I'm in your situation where I'm doing some instructional video and I want to analyze the opening of a game, and then I forget that it's still ongoing, or not forget, but I just don't care about the game anymore because I'm up a queen in 3 pieces. And honestly, there's no point in continuing this game. And I turn on the position because I'm interested in the opening. This is not an indication that I would turn on the computer during a tournament game. There's a very big difference. Just because I have the ability, that seems to be the distinction between having the ability to cheat, which of course you do and I do and every grandmaster does, and having the mentality to cheat, if you want to call it mentality, are very different things in my view. So yeah, of course, optics are bad. Like, I think you were too nice. I wouldn't have apologized in that case.
First of all, there's the argument about technically being able to cheat. I'm like, do you guys not have chess space? Like, is it weird to have chess space on my other monitor? And they're like, well, it takes time to open chess space. That's a lie. Chess space is already open during the speedrun because this was the second game. To talk about the first game, I pasted into chess space, and they're like, why would you need to do that? I'm like, well, I'm checking the opening with like Megabase, and I'm like looking at moments with Stockfish, and like, why aren't you using the chess.com Stockfish? And I'm like, well, that's because I don't have access to the engine evals on my speedrun account. Every question I have an explanation for because it's the truth. Then they're like, well, it takes more than like 2 seconds to do all of that and open up Stockfish, but that's because there was a 20-second clip edited out by my editor, just because he edits out like longer segments where my opponent is thinking that are boring from like my YouTube channel. And I tried to find the original, but I couldn't because it's like 3 months ago and he didn't have it either. But to show that indeed I had entered the moves into chess space, I pulled up my game history from that day, and I actually found the exact segment where I enter the moves in. And I said, let me show you the game history. And suddenly Kramnik's like, no, it's okay. You don't have to. Right? So this is where the gaslighting comes in. When I am like that close to showing how much of an asshole you are and how cruel what you're doing is, suddenly you just like push it away. I also demonstrated that I could enter 8 moves and turn on Stockfish in like exactly 20 seconds. And then he commented that it was 24 seconds, which it wasn't. And like, this is the level to which this is descending to. I also found my game history from the day that I played or did not play Bishop C8. And that's not good enough either. That's 2022. So my history was saved on the cloud. But just to conclude my thought, the analogy Levitov made, that's such a damaging analogy, and I think how other GMs are thinking about it, some other GMs, is that I stole a pack of gum from a store when I was a kid or whatever. Does that make you more likely to steal like a TV from a store or a computer from a store a couple of years later? And, you know, probably like if you stole a pack of gum for no good reason, and you're an adult and, you know, someone stole a TV 5 months later, you're probably statistically more likely, yeah, to be a suspect. But I didn't steal a pack of gum. I think the analogy is damaging because from a moral perspective, what I did was bad because it's a violation and, you know, the optics are bad. But it would never occur to me even during a speedrun game, to look at the engine in order to help my play. It's not even about who I'm playing. I've played many cheaters on the speedrun. I would never like turn on the engine because I think they're cheating. That's insane. I think he's accusing me of being antagonistic and essentially planting the seeds of a bad faith conversation, which is like actual gaslighting, I think, in its proper usage. He also accused me of having a personality disorder, ironically. So I said, I can't like account for glance number 16, but I can tell you that like 90% of those were literally still looking at my computer. I often look at my opponent's clock, right, during any game. Just like, that's just like a place I look at. And one of the things that this has done is made me question my sanity. Like I don't have the metacognition of my pattern of glances. I don't even know where I'm looking at half the time. I'm not necessarily looking at the like theater of action. If I play e4 takes d5, I'm going to look at that pawn to execute the move. But on any particular millisecond, I could be looking anywhere. So like I do that, and he says to me, no, you're looking at a third monitor. So I say, no, I'm actually looking at my screen and I can prove it. He's like, no, you're looking somewhere else. So I'm saying, you're saying I'm looking at a third monitor. No, I never said that. Like, it literally reaches this level where he will say something and 5 seconds later, he will say he never said it and then claim that he's just asking questions. Then I say, okay, Vlad, what are the success conditions, right? Because for a prosecutor who's asking a question or interrogating, you need to outline the conditions under which you can disprove his non-assertions or non-accusations, right? And he literally doesn't respond to that. He's like, until you provide me an answer that I am satisfied with, that is his answer, actually. Like, I will keep repeating these questions and I demand an answer. So not only is this repugnant and despicable and just loathsome on the personal level of like, who the fuck are you? That, first of all, to talk to me this way. And yes, Fabi, like, I really want to take a moment to concede the point that he was not treated well in the initial stages of his campaign. And I think that, you know, online bullies bear some brunt, and for not according world champion. This isn't like the ghost of Capablanca, right? People pretending that he's like 80 years old. He is someone who dominated the chess world very recently. He is a voice that should be heard. And I'm not going to speak for chess.com. Like, I don't know what went on between them. I wasn't part of the process, which is what I told him, which is where he revealed that this is pure vengeance. For he knows that I was uninvolved. But, you know, in content creators or whatever, like, yeah, I think that they maybe fan the flames of this, and that's unacceptable and should be called out. And I'm sorry that he had to go through that, but that does not mean that in any way justifies an act of what I believe is evil at this point. A sustained effort to like assassinate my character that he undertakes as part of like vengeance. I think there are other ways to express your dissatisfaction. What doesn't really make sense to me, and only makes sense by like ascribing, you know, deep moral bankruptcy and cruelty to someone, is I told Kramnik, I said, listen, I told Levitov or Kramnik, and he was on the call yesterday. I said, you know, I can understand some of the qualms that he has. I can look past the delusion that he is spreading. I can forgive him for the slander and making it personal. And we will never agree on the chronology of events, but I'm willing to shake hands. I said that to him. I'm willing to shake hands and, you know, and work on a new, more wholesome reality. If you leave me alone, all I ask is that you stop putting out the videos and tweets. And that's basically my only demand. Like, he doesn't even have to stop asking questions. Like I said, I am happy to answer your questions on a podcast. Like I would be happy to do a second episode, provided that you show remorse for what you did, maybe. But the only serious non-negotiable demand, stop putting out the hate and the slander. And his response to that 5 minutes later was another tweet and another crazy unhinged video this morning. And I said that you're causing me at this point physical harm. Because, you know, my health has been affected by this, my emotional health, and my physical health. Like, I can't sleep, 100%, you know, like I'm feeling the effect of this. My Blitz rating dropped, which is not the most important thing. I'm getting some of it back. But, you know, the people saying that he's not reaching anybody and he's just a man shouting into the distance. This isn't like Billy Bob on the street corner, you know, preaching. This is a person with influence and reach who is being propagated by title players, and I'm not blaming them for like buying his bullshit. It's like I understand he is his reach is wider than people realize that it is. And it's about principle for me. Like, I didn't win Title Tuesdays because I have decided to like put my morals above, a desire to like make some cash. And somehow I'm the one paying the price for this, which is not fair. And for me, it's principle. Like, I did not cheat. There's one truth, and I want to prove myself because I don't want a single person like thinking something that's untrue.